The Spruce Meadows National Tournament, June 2005. Nobody recalls the weather being this bad for this long. Record amounts of rain have fallen all week. Brazil's Rodrigo Pessoa was hoping to ride his top mount, Baloubet du Rouet, in the final event of the Spruce Meadows National. But his plans have an unexpected change.
Yeah, well, my best horse got injured yesterday. He wasn't feeling great. He's 16. We don't want to take any chances with him. We want to make him jump as long as we can. So we only jump him when the conditions are really perfect. And he probably was asking us to give him a little break today, so that's what we did.
Pessoa will now be riding Richmond Park, a 12-year-old Irish gelding who joined his stable less than a month ago. In a sport that relies so much on the bond between horse and rider, Pessoa is taking a chance by entering his new mount in the Spruce Meadows Derby. This competition has one of the most demanding courses in the sport, and this year, the event is even more demanding thanks to the weather. Just prior to the Derby, the weather takes a turn for the worse. At the last minute, international course designer Leopoldo Palacios revises the course for the competition. The welfare of the horses is at the forefront of his decision.
Yeah, I think it was a very good decision. They did not make it easy by any means. They only lowered a few fences and only by a hole or two. So, and they made the double oxers in the beginning a little narrower. So, I think they kind of had to, not knowing how the footing was going to be. But I think actually it's quite soggy on top, and the roots are holding.
How well the course holds up to competition will be determined by the first rider, Britain's Michael Whitaker. Whitaker finishes his round with just 4 faults.
Yeah, obviously I got the best of the ground being first in, but it's very wet and sloppy, but I didn't feel like it was holding it too much, you know. It's a little bit in places, but it's not too bad. But I got the best. It's going to definitely get worse, you know.
Rodrigo Pessoa is the last rider to go in the competition. He enters the stadium with Richmond Park. As they begin their round, Pessoa is aware of the pressure. 2 riders have put in 4 fault rounds. A clear round is the only way to win the competition. It's a tall order for this new team. Pessoa and Richmond Park are clear heading into the final fence. The last rail down is disappointing, but it's not over by any means. Pessoa is too impressed with Richmond Park's performance to give up hope.
He was jumping really good, and so I wanted to, he's never done a derby, so I didn't know how he was going to react on Liverpools and things like that, double of Liverpools, but he was really great. He did a big jump in, and the distance in there is really short, so he didn't fit, but he really did an amazing job.
Rodrigo Pessoa joins 2 other riders in the jump-off. Britain's Michael Whitaker is first to go. It's a clear round. American BZ Madden is next. It's a clear round for Madden, and her faster time puts her in top spot. Last to go is Rodrigo Pessoa. Richmond Park gives the effort Pessoa was looking for. They cross the finish line with no knockdowns. And with the fastest time, they win the competition. The victory is indicative of the mark Rodrigo Pessoa has made on the sport of show jumping during his illustrious career. His understanding and natural ability with the horse has carried him to the top. No matter what the competition, no matter which horse he rides, Rodrigo Pessoa is always a contender. From the moment Rodrigo Pessoa was born, he seemed destined for the sport of show jumping. At the time, his father, Nelson Pessoa, was one of the best riders in the world. In 1961, when Nelson Pessoa moved from his home country of Brazil to the center of the show jumping world in Europe, there was no doubting his passion for the sport. The passion quickly translated into success. Nelson Pessoa was the one to beat when it came to derbies. And with over 150 European career wins, he was the one to beat in Grand Prix as well. But more than the wins, it was his style that set this legend apart. A style that influenced many riders to come.
I think the style that he was using, that was, they gave riders a lighter seat and riding forward and trying to make it as easy as possible. And I think that was really his trademark.
With such a successful father in the sport and so much time spent with his father at events, it's no surprise Rodrigo Pessoa followed in his footsteps.
Well, it was pretty obvious with my father riding at the big level, being a professional for many years. It was pretty obvious that I would do this job, I think. But I started when I was 5 on ponies, and then it went growing. The passion went growing, and when I started competing on ponies and then juniors, and I really got the horse virus.
Once the younger Pessoa started riding, he never looked back.
When I was small, I did a little bit of other sports, but nothing really gave me the buzz of riding horse and having the possibility of learning something every day.
As a young rider, Rodrigo Pessoa was much like any other kid.
You know, when you're young and you're starting to ride, you kind of want to skip the basics a little bit and just gallop, go fast. The notion of speed is really something that was important to me. Walking and trotting was not that exciting.
Unlike other young riders, though, Pessoa had something that set him apart. Those who witnessed his early years knew he had immense potential.
And I think from one day to the other, I find out that you are really talented to ride, and then from this moment I start to believe that I could be a rider one day.
Show jumping is a sport, however, where talent is just a small part of the equation. You can have lots of natural riding ability, but if your horse isn't up to the challenge, or if you aren't clicking as a team, all the talent in the world won't translate into victory. Regardless of whether you're a developing rider or a seasoned professional, when it comes to show jumping, there are many more losses than wins.
Well, I think Rodrigo irritated if he get a couple of things from me. That was to be a good loser. Sad, but okay. So next time, and let's see what's going wrong, and try to get better next time.
It's been pretty much from the beginning. I've been really a very realistic person, not a dreamer. I set my goals, try to set goals. Give me a fair chance, knowing the tools that I have.
Luckily for Rodrigo Pessoa, he had some of the best tools and talent in the sport. When it came to setting goals, becoming the best in the world wasn't out of the question. In the 1980s, when Rodrigo Pessoa was a teenager, his free time was spent riding. On the weekends, he'd attend national competitions in Belgium, the country his family had settled in. He saw some success on the national circuit, but more important for him at this time was the desire to establish his own identity. He wanted people to see him as Rodrigo Pessoa, not just as the son of a show jumping legend. But before that would come, he'd spend many years learning the ropes and making his fair share of mistakes.
Well, when I saw him first, he was a pony rider, and I remember he got lost twice in the ring. He took the wrong course, and I thought it's still a long way for him to become as good as his dad.
The expectations placed on Rodrigo Pessoa, because he was the son of a show jumping legend, meant dealing with added pressure while trying to find his way in a challenging sport.
Well, at the beginning was not very easy because you always you carry this. It's a heavy name, which has two sides. It opens many doors, and it's for sponsors and owners. It's already a very good opening. But on the other hand, you expect the people expect from you a lot of results early, and they don't accept any mistakes.
Being the son of Nelson Pessoa wasn't all hardship, though. There were advantages along the way, from the horses he got to ride to the sponsors who wanted to support the son of such a great horseman.
It made things easier for me in the beginning. You know, I could take advantage of a whole infrastructure that was ready.
He don't miss the opportunities that have been offered to him, and that is important. Because without opportunity, nobody can have any chance. But he really do his job well, and when he's on the horse and when he also on his feet.
By the time the 1990s rolled around, Rodrigo Pessoa was starting to establish his place within the sport. He still had many lessons to learn, but he was gaining respect from his fellow competitors.
A few years later, I remember he was still quite young, riding Special Envoy. Actually, I think he beat his dad at that time already when he was 17 or 18 years old. And I mean, then you could see that he was on the right way to be as good as the dad. And I mean, looking back now, he's actually won more than him.
In the early 90s, Rodrigo Pessoa made his first trip across the Atlantic to the Spruce Meadows Masters tournament. It was a sign he had arrived in the sport. The Masters is where the best come to compete.
Of course, I was really excited to be able to come for the first time to Canada and to Calgary. I'd heard a lot about it, and my dad had been there in previous years, and so I was really excited about this. Really excited about the trip.
In 1992, Pessoa arrived at Spruce Meadows with his top horse, Special Envoy.
A phenomenal horse with a very big heart, very intelligent, quick in his mind, but you had to ride him forward because he didn't have all the power, but he was always the best when you were going forward.
Pessoa and Special Envoy didn't make much of a mark at their first Masters tournament until the final day. In 1992, the Spruce Meadows Masters culminated with the Du Maurier International Grand Prix, one of the biggest Grand Prix competitions in the sport.
It was a cold day. But you know, the horse had a lot of experience. I had been through, you know, one World Championship, the Olympics already, and so I knew him quite well.
Despite competing against top horse rider combinations with more experience, Pessoa and Special Envoy put in a performance worthy of advancing to the second round. For those who watched, it was clear why they had advanced. The round was a smooth and calculated performance. Rodrigo Pessoa and Special Envoy finished their first Du Maurier International Grand Prix in 6th place.
I was, of course, thrilled to be placed in the Grand Prix. It was one of my first big checks, and it was great. That was the start of my history in Spruce Meadows.
The 6th place finish was impressive for such a young rider. At 19 years of age, Pessoa's future was becoming undeniable. This was a rider who was heading towards greatness. In the sport of show jumping, it's the partnership between horse and rider that makes or breaks a career. Most riders are lucky if they have one great horse in their lifetime. Many more spent countless hours trying to get good performances out of horses that will never produce the results they desire. What makes Rodrigo Pessoa's career stand out is how many great horses he's had the privilege to ride.
My dad always let me ride really horses that he was sure that I was safe and that would fit that moment of my riding. So he was always very careful to try to match the best horse possible to the rider. So I was always very lucky to have really nice horses.
When it came to choosing horses for his son to ride, Nelson Pessoa had an amazing talent for finding the right ones to bring up through the ranks.
He knows pretty much, only with a couple of jumps, he knows he can judge the potential of the horse, and I mean, experience really has no price. It's something that is it's an asset that is very valuable, and when you can benefit from that, I think it's really good.
Not only did Nelson Pessoa help his son find horses, he also helped train them. By the time Rodrigo Pessoa was entering the international level of the sport, Nelson Pessoa's career was coming to a close. His new focus would include developing young horses for his son to take into international competition.
So then was no problem. I was riding them until one level, and then straight away Rodrigo take him to the rest of the career.
Special Envoy was Rodrigo Pessoa's first great horse. While he wouldn't be the most successful horse he rode, he did teach Rodrigo Pessoa some valuable lessons. Lessons that helped advance his skill in the international ring.
He was an unbelievable teacher. He really taught me to be really competitive, because that's the way he went best, was forward and moving forward. And maybe today with a better mind, I could have won more classes with him. But he was a five-star teacher for me.
He's a very delicate horse, very sweet horse, and horse with a very volunteer. That was very important for a young rider.
Special Envoy was the forgiving horse that taught Rodrigo Pessoa his lessons in the early 90s. But it was a more difficult Tomboy who would see him through the next phase of his career.
He has a funny character. He is a very special horse. And when he was, I think, 6 or 7, he had, with his previous owner, accident. He fell off a bridge, actually. It did happen off a 2 or 3 meter bridge. He was scared with a car or something. Fell off a bridge and then got injured. His front legs were injured, so he has now one leg that's not really straight. But this has shaped up over the years fine.
Despite an inability to tuck his legs up tight like other show jumpers, Tomboy managed to clear the jumps as well as any of his competitors. In fact, he cleared many jumps better than the others.
Tomboy have one way of jumping. If you remember him, he jumped in the air 1 meter too much, and the horse, the rider needs to have a really, really good grip with his legs and with his seat to not disturb the horse with his hands.
Tomboy was a true Irish gelding with a fighting spirit and immense heart.
And he's a big horse, a bit stiff, very funny way of jumping, but very, very, very scopy, and he's super brave. So he's always fighting, and he's really, to me, he's been a super horse to me.
From the beginning, there was a sense that Tomboy could carry Rodrigo Pessoa to great heights, but getting there wouldn't be an easy ride.
Tomboy was really not very easy horse. Yeah. He's sensitive and difficult to stay on the saddle.
Despite the difficulties, Rodrigo Pessoa was finding early success with this mount. In 1996, when Rodrigo and Tomboy arrived in Calgary, Alberta for the Masters tournament, the pair were hot off a team bronze medal win at the Atlanta Olympics. On the Friday night of the Masters, Pessoa and Tomboy showed the crowds why they were a great match. In the Alberta Power 6 bar, the two put in clear round after clear round. In the final round, they were the last to go. Only one other horse-rider combination had made it through the last line clear. Pessoa and Tomboy put in another faultless performance, they would tie for the win. Rodrigo Pessoa shared the 1996 win with Switzerland's Biet Mandley. As he hoisted the trophy, he knew Tomboy couldn't have been better prepared for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Heading into Sunday's Des Mauriers International, Pessoa felt he and Tomboy were in top form. But the course design began to raise some doubts. The jumping was going to be demanding, and Tomboy was never an easy ride.
You really had to study the course really well with him. You really had to compose a lot and be a little bit forgiving from time to time. Use angles to give you a little bit more room because he was not the horse that had a perfect rideability.
In round one of the Du Maurier International, Pessoa and Tomboy had a rail down. Despite the 4 faults, they qualified for round 2. At the end of the second round, the duo amazingly left all the rails up. Pessoa and Tomboy's third-place finish in the 1996 Du Maurier International may not have been an easy ride, but it certainly was a memorable one. Towards the end of the 90s, there was no doubt Rodrigo Pessoa had made a name for himself. He had surpassed his father's accomplishments by winning 2 medals that remained unattainable to Nelson Pessoa during his career: a gold medal at the 1995 Pan American Games and a bronze medal at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. Incredibly, the remarkable heights of Rodrigo Pessoa's career were yet to come. Over the next few years, he would achieve unprecedented success thanks to 2 amazing mounts. When he was only 5 years old, Baloubet du Rouet arrived at the Pessoa stables in Belgium. Nelson Pessoa knew immediately that Baloubet had something special.
I sit on him and jump, and I saw the horse with all this energy. And I remember very well, I have one fence, one pool, 1.20 meters. It was only to have his feeling. He jumped in that. Well, I think, I swear, when he put the front feet on the floor, I said, this horse will be a champion.
In the beginning, Baloubet's potential was not as evident to Rodrigo Pessoa. All he saw was unbridled energy stemming from Baloubet's bloodline.
I was a little bit cautious because I had ridden other Galoubets before, and all had a little bit the same characteristic. And so I was a little bit cautious, I must say. But he really showed a big jump and a big potential from the start. That was very clear.
As was the routine, Nelson Pessoa rode Baloubet for the first couple of years.
I dedicated all my time on Baloubet and jump in the French season. That is a very good calendar for young horses. At 6 and 7 years old, actually he became national champion in France as 7 years old in Fontainebleau.
When Baloubet became French champion, Nelson Pessoa knew it was time to pass the reins onto his son. Almost immediately, the partnership between Rodrigo Pessoa and Baloubet started taking shape. The pair arrived in Helsinki for the 1998 World Cup Finals. Baloubet was only 9 years old and a bit young for the difficult competition that lay ahead. But both the Pessoas felt the stallion was up for the challenge.
He was really in a brilliant shape. And we really thought that the horse could go all the way. Knowing that he was only 9, it would be the first championship, the first time he would do, stuff jumping, 3 days, 3-day championship. But we thought that he really had a shot to win.
Baloubet proved he had it in him to win. He made it through 3 days of jumping with incredible form and a scorecard that was impossible to beat. Rodrigo Pessoa and Baloubet du Rouet were crowned World Cup champions in 1998. Next on the 1998 agenda for Rodrigo Pessoa was the World Equestrian Games in Rome. During this championship, he introduced the world to his latest mount, Llanos.
Llanos had was not the most talented jumper, but one quality that he really had was the size of his heart, and really he wanted to do it. He really wanted to try. He was a trier, always.
Llanos came to the Pessoa stable through an acquaintance of Nelson's. Rodrigo Pessoa had seen the horse in competition before and thought he had potential. So when presented with the opportunity to take on the 11-year-old, Rodrigo Pessoa immediately said yes. Despite being together for only a few months, Pessoa was confident Llanos would do well in the 1998 World Equestrian Games in Rome.
You know, he was a horse that possibly had to be in the top 10. But if everything went well and didn't make too many mistakes, we wouldn't be too far away from the Final Four.
Unfortunately, not all was going well. Llanos was a horse that tired easily in the hot Roman sun, and by the final day of competition, the heat was taking its toll.
I remember the vet check on Sunday morning was really tough. He didn't want to get up. He was really lying down in his box, and we had to make him get up and drag him through the vet check because he was really, it was really tough for him.
Getting motivated for the vet check may have been a challenge, but when it came time to compete, Llanos was ready to perform. With only 4 faults incurred over the entire competition, the pair had secured their place at the top. At 25 years of age, Rodrigo Pessoa was the youngest to ever win the World Championship title.
These big wins, these big championships, that is what you're working for every day. That's why you get up every day. And a title like that is something that sticks to you your whole life.
As the 1998 season came to a close, Rodrigo Pessoa was ranked the #1 rider in the world, and both Baloubet and Llanos were considered 2 of the top horses in the world. There was no denying the talent and depth of the Pessoa team. Both Rodrigo Pessoa and his horses had many more competition years ahead of them, and already they had proven so much. The reality was, they were just getting started. Little did the world know the success they were about to witness. In 1999, Rodrigo Pessoa and Baloubet du Rouet arrived at the World Cup finals in Gothenburg, Sweden, prepared to defend their title. The duo won the first leg of the finals and kept the pressure on for the remaining events. On the last day of competition, Pessoa and Baloubet had 1 fence down in the first round.
The first round of the Sunday, on a vertical coming out of the left corner like that, and a little bit my mistake. The distance was a little bit big, and I went forward, and he had it down.
It turned out to be their only knockdown in the entire competition.
The last round I was last to go and I had to go clear to make it 2 in a row. And again, the horse really performed to perfection in the second round and jumped really outstanding.
For the second year in a row, Rodrigo and Baloubet were crowned World Cup champions. By defending the title, Rodrigo had now joined the ranks of John Whitaker, Hugo Simon, and Ian Miller, some of the best riders the sport has ever seen. 2000 was shaping up to be another important year in Rodrigo Pessoa's career. It was an Olympic year, so horse management was top priority. Knowing which horse to ride in which event was a crucial part of the game plan. Luckily, he had both Baloubet and Llanos in his stable. At the start of the year, he didn't know which mount he'd take to the Olympics. As he'd find out, it would be one of the most difficult decisions of his career. The first big event on the 2000 agenda was the World Cup Finals in Las Vegas. Pessoa and Baloubet were set to defend their title for the third year in a row. It was a lofty goal considering nobody has ever achieved that result on the same horse, let alone for 3 consecutive years. A week prior to the World Cup Finals, Pessoa had a fall and badly bruised his lower back. Not only was he hurting, all was not well with Baloubet after the flight from Europe.
The trip didn't work out so well for him. He's normally a very good traveler, very quiet, even being a stallion, but he had some shipping fever, a very high temperature. He was very much in doubt of participating this week. He recovered well, he responded very well to the treatment, and today, morning of the first competition, he looks good. He's not 100%, but he recovered, I would say, 85%. And we will see whether that is enough to beat the rest, yes or no.
Their first competition was the opening day speed event. Any concerns about whether Baloubet was up for the challenge quickly disappeared. Baloubet jumped strong and put in the fastest performance of the day. At the end of day 1, Pessoa and Baloubet were leading in the World Cup Finals. On day 2, their result wasn't perfect, but it came close. They had no rails down, but they didn't have the fastest time in the jump-off. They would have to settle for second place. The final day of competition arrived. Baloubet was fresh at the beginning of the event, but Pessoa was able to keep everything under control. Baloubet and Pessoa headed into the second round with their clear scorecard intact. At the start of round 2, it looked like the perfect ride might be over.
It was not a light rope. He hit it pretty hard, but it stayed, and so that woke him up a little bit.
Thankfully, Baloubet answered the wake-up call. Baloubet and Pessoa rode to their third consecutive victory in the World Cup Finals. It was a historic record-setting day for the duo, and hopefully a sign of good things to come for the 2000 season. In September of 2000, Rodrigo Pessoa arrived at the Spruce Meadows Masters tournament with Llanos. This arrival meant Llanos would not be competing at the Olympics in Sydney, Australia. It was a tough decision for Pessoa. Both his top mounts were in fantastic form, but he knew taking Llanos to Sydney wouldn't be the wise decision.
He was a horse that didn't have all the blood, and you had to really motivate him to do it, and really the heat took a lot out of him, and he had some lung issues. And so the heat was not a good place for him.
Instead, Llanos was charged with carrying Pessoa through the biggest payday in the sport, a day that took on more importance this particular year.
It was very important for me because I had taken the decision to not take that horse to the Olympics, and that the owner, I'm not going to say that took it bad, but was disappointed because he wanted his horse to go to the Olympics. And so I thought it was a special task for me that day. Try to, I'm not going to say that I had promised him that he would win the Grand Prix in Calgary, but I really said, you know, that I'll go to Calgary and give it as much importance as the Olympics.
Rodrigo Pessoa. The 2000 Du Maurier International Grand Prix started well for Pessoa and Llanos. In the first round, they went clear and advanced to round 2.
The second round is maybe not as tough as the first round, but nevertheless, you know, these poles, they come down just the same way, so you need to be, again, very concentrated, very focused, and it'd be good to jump clear again.
When Pessoa and Llanos started their second round, no other horse-rider combination had a clear scorecard. If they kept all the rails up, they would win the event. The performance was flawless, and it was unbeatable. Rodrigo Pessoa and Llanos won the 2000 Du Maurier International, one of the most prestigious events in the sport of show jumping. With the Du Maurier win, Pessoa headed to the Sydney Olympics on a high note. Unfortunately, Australia didn't play out as well as a Spruce Meadows performance. Pessoa and Baloubet helped the Brazilian team achieve a bronze medal, but their hopes of getting an individual medal would not be realized. Despite the personal disappointment he felt at the end of his 2000 season, Rodrigo Pessoa moved on.
So if I have a bad day, I don't want to think about it too much, and you know, there are things in life that are more important than that, and you just have to move on, and the next day there will be another competition, and we have another go, and try to correct the things. The important thing is that you know where you've made the mistakes, try to correct them, try not to do them again.
The 2001 show jumping season was not one of the most successful for Rodrigo Pessoa. He was still putting in good results, but his visits to the winner's circle were less frequent. When Pessoa arrived at the Spruce Meadows Masters in the fall of 2001, his confidence was not as high as in previous years. But he wasn't about to let frustration get the better of him. He was counting on Llanos to help him out of his slump.
From the month of June, where he last jumped in Aachen, I said, okay, I will direct him. His training will be towards Spruce Meadows, because he had really a great show last year and was really successful.
Pessoa was hoping he and Llanos would be able to defend their title in the biggest payday in the sport. A day that became even bigger in 2001 with an increase in prize money. Those who rode in the inaugural Nortel Networks International were competing for $1 million. In the hitching ring, prior to their first round, it looked like Llanos was going to be a difficult ride for Pessoa.
He's not a spectacular horse, but he's a very, very big fighter, and he really tries very hard. And like you say, when he comes under the clock tower, he really grows, and when he gets in there, he's ready for it.
True to form, the minute Llanos entered the international ring for the first round, he regained his focus. Despite a few rubs along the way, the pair finished the first round with no knockdowns. Pessoa and Llanos were second last to go in round 2. Up to that point, no horse-rider combination was able to put in 2 clear rounds. Pessoa and Llanos crossed the finish line with no faults. They were in the lead with only one combination left to go. American Lauren Huff and Classico were the final competitors that day. If they could pull off a clear round, there would be a jump-off for the win. Huff and Classico ran into trouble at the double of Liverpools. Their knockdown put Rodrigo Pessoa and Llanos into the history books. They were the first duo to ever win this prestigious Grand Prix in back-to-back victories.
My horse was unbelievable today, and you need an incredible horse to be able to achieve things like this. And really today he was fighting really good, and I felt good as well, and everything came together, and well, it's great.
This was a lucrative win for Pessoa, but more importantly, it put his mind back on track. He still had what it took to beat the odds and make it into the history books again. By the time Rodrigo Pessoa reached the age of 30, he had accomplished more than most riders are able to achieve throughout their entire careers. He'd medaled at both the Pan American Games and the Olympics. He was the only rider to win the biggest payday in the sport 2 years in a row. He'd been the only one to achieve 3 consecutive titles at the World Cup Finals. And he was the youngest rider ever to win a world championship. Pessoa is the first to admit he didn't achieve his success alone. He always had a strong team supporting him, his father, sponsors, owners, grooms. But when talking about the successes of Rodrigo Pessoa, one can't forget about the help he had from 2 great horses. In 2004, it was time for Llanos to retire. The horse's passion for the sport was beginning to wane, and Pessoa wanted to make sure the horse retired a champion.
When a horse gives you that much emotions and that much pleasure, and together with the owner really decided that it will take him away being still at the top.
In retirement, Llanos now spends half his time at his owner's stable in Italy and the other half at the Pessoa stable.
He was a darling horse in our stable, and we really like to see him a little bit, and so we share his retirement between Milan and Brussels.
After Llanos retired, Rodrigo Pessoa and Baloubet went on to win many more titles, including an individual gold medal at the 2004 Olympics in Athens. But like all good things, Baloubet's career will also come to an end.
Well, to replace horses like Baloubet and Llanos is very difficult because they're really unbelievable. They're really 10 in almost all the categories. But I think it's very important for us to keep preparing the future, so you don't find yourself after 2 great horses like that. You don't find like a gap for a couple of years while you have to find a new horse.
For Pessoa, the future lies in the development of young horses. Once the job of his father, Rodrigo Pessoa is now playing a bigger role in training young mounts.
You'll never find 2 horses, photocopy one of each other. You find similarities, but and if the similarities are good, like this horse, he's very, very sharp. He can remind you of Baloubet a little bit. He's very pays attention all the time. He's very concentrated, always his ears pointing. He's very much like Baloubet, and maybe one day, he'll also be a great horse in the ring.
After winning everything there is to win, the challenge of training young horses seems to appeal more to Pessoa these days.
They are the ones that really make you improve because they're always coming up with something new. And they always have, they don't know exactly what to do. And then that's really where you feel that your work is really valuable.
As Pessoa enters his mid-30s, his drive to win is still there, but it's not as powerful as it once was. There's a sense his focus is shifting. For a rider with such an impressive resume, it's hard to imagine what the future has in store for Rodrigo Pessoa. He says he'll continue to compete until the next Olympics. But after that?
It has been from the beginning of my career a passion for me it will be, I think, impossible for me to live without horses. And for the moment, like I said, I'm very lucky with all the people that I work with, and I have a great success, and I'm also investing all my time in it, all my energy. And I think when I won't have the same pleasure of competing anymore, I'll probably hook up and do something else, but always involved with horses, because it will be, it's for me impossible to live without them.